thank you for having me, guys. I'm really excited to be here, and I've enjoyed listening to all the different presentations. My name is James. I'm obviously from Australia, which makes me somewhat unique to this setting. I've married a woman from Orlando, so I live in Florida now, so this has been really fun for me to be here. I want to talk about this morning capital deployment as it relates to ground-up development. So we've seen a lot of content around building management and operations. And we've heard a little bit about finding great deals. I want to talk about the space between finding a good opportunity and then actually getting it built. So that the grey fuzzy area in capital deployment where it's very hard to be analytical, it's very hard to be data driven. My name is James. As I said, I am one of the founders of Giraffe. Giraffe is a digital twin platform for property development for governments and for consultants. My skill set, I come from an analytical background. I worked for Tableau and Salesforce for years, deploying analytics solutions at large telcos, consultants, blah, blah, blah. And I'm very passionate about data. And one thing I found with real estate, there is lots of great data on helping you find sites, and there is a growing number of solutions on helping you use data to manage your assets. And the bit in between is a nightmare. And that's the bit we're going to explore right now. The other founders are really the brains and the smarts behind our platform. That's Rob Asher is a computational designer and architect on billion-dollar projects in a tier 1 architectural firm in Australia. Lucy Booth is a strategic planner doing 10, 20-year, 30-year master plans on behalf of government. And then we have 2 PhD data scientists in our founding team as well. I'm going to start with a very quick story, and I've got the clock ticking, so I know I've got to stay on time. But the story is around a development in Sydney that our team worked on. It's really the genesis of why we decided to do what we're doing. The team were building doing the detailed design on a 40-story high-rise, and halfway through the detailed design, the site had already been optioned, interest payments were being made, capital was being burned. Halfway through that design, there was a discovery that the shadow analysis on the tower had been done incorrectly. Everything had to be restarted. 2 years of stakeholder engagement had to go back to ground zero, re-engage with the city, and everything got pushed out by months and months and months, which is a real issue when you're trying to deploy over $1 billion of capital. So what we looked at, or what Robert and Lucy looked at that point, said, what is the issue? Why is this deal-making stage so hard to be data-driven? And these were the 4 points that we came up with, which are the founding tenets behind the platform. One is, everybody is working at different levels of detail. When you are building a building, you have development managers working in Excel doing their pro forma at a very low level of resolution intentionally to keep their bands of their investment. You have architects and engineers. Engineers love to work at the block and stack level and do their calculations. Architects love to submit everything in a 45-page PDF with, great sexy curves and all sorts of interesting and relevant details. But they're critical to get the job done. And the reason that the industry is so siloed is because it's such a broad breadth of experience that it takes to build it. And everybody, each of these consultants are crucial. They have their way of doing work, and they have their insurances, which mean if the building's going to fall down. So the industry is intentionally siloed. There's also tons of bad data. I speak to hundreds of development managers across the US and Australia and Europe, thousands I guess, and the number of them that are doing sketches on the back of a napkin and then feeding that data into Excel is unbelievable. So it's very hard to be analytical when the data you're working with is on a piece of paper. And I'm not even kidding about that. That is a lot of how deals get put together. And then the last piece is there's very low digital adoption. And the reason there is very low digital adoption is because the skill set that it takes to put a deal together of $1 billion is very relational. It's very strategic. And these kinds of people hate using digital tools, or at least that's what they say. They actually use a lot of digital tools, quite natively, like Excel and their iPhone, but they refuse to adopt CRMs, and for good reason, because they're so poorly designed. So there's a low digital adoption in the industry that we also have to combat.
The good news is that all these problems have been solved before. APIs, marketplaces, take Salesforce for example, is a platform that has lots of deep solutions that are built point solutions on the platform. Metadata to solve the data problem. When you drag a deal from under review to under construction, you can create automatic metadata around that. And then lastly is building products that people love to use. So what we built is a digital twin, and a digital twin that feels like a piece of paper to use, has the power of a spreadsheet and is as intuitive as a spreadsheet to build, so that you can plan your development with very low risk and very, very quickly. Just like it feels to draw on your piece of paper, you can draw designs and get the analytical output. You can build your cost plans just like you would in Excel. You can mark it up so people actually understand what you're talking about, which is massive when you're in that gray area communicating. This is the Water Street development in Tampa, which is off screen right now for some reason. You can quickly analyze the yield of a site, understand its viability in seconds, and you can use that cost plan that looks and feels exactly like your pro forma. And then it has a whole bunch of APIs that underpin it. I'm just going to let this play out. I'll come back to it. There is a whole bunch of APIs that underpin it, so you can go and procure advice programmatically at the click of a button. We have partners that do $50,000 worth of engineering services at the click of a button, go and run and tell you what the services should be and the delta between a high-level HVAC and a low-level HVAC, and do all the automated documentation so that you can submit your proposal in a matter of days as opposed to weeks. That McLeamy curve shows that the earlier you can do your design, the more accurately and smarter you can deploy your capital. That's an established rule of design. And the issue with feasibility is it's often so hard to get those pieces of data for the reasons that I mentioned earlier, because everything's disconnected and all over the shop. So what you're seeing right here, or what you just saw before it disappeared, was a Giraffe digital twin that was built in about 15 minutes by a development manager, calling on a database, an embodied carbon database. You can use, in the feasibility stage, you can affect the materials and assemblies that go into building the building if you understand what their embodied carbon is. So this allows you to take the digital twin, pass it off to a third party. We use the Footprint company, but you could use One-Click LCA or Skanska's EC3, and actually understand what the embodied carbon is in the building, so you can make a detailed decision at the feasibility stage, which is when the deal is getting done about what materials we're going to use to build the building. So what does all that mean? It means not only do you end up with a great database in your project to keep your project operating to task, but you then end up with an amazing historical database that has all the same assets on any site you've ever looked at. So here's a quick example of me zooming around to a site. I hope it will show me placing a skyscraper on a site that I built 5 years ago and then adjusting the cost plan for inflation. So I can go from getting an idea of a site, zooming to it, and then adding on not only my cost plan exactly to spec that may have as many line items as I want on there, but also all of the designs that may have been done. And this right here is the gateway to modular building. Because imagine if one of these pieces had all our modular components already connected to it. I can just drag and drop it into a site, and then the robots can run off and build it. That's what we're talking about here. This is a major deal for modular design. And then the last piece is when you have all that data, what does that mean for your forecasting of how your business runs? Because when we're talking about billions of dollars of capital, we're also talking about billions of dollars of materials. I should be able to now, I can see all my deals in the different stages that they're in. I can run a quick Power BI query that says, show me all of the projects that we're deploying over the next 2 years and the gross tonnages of steel. Or how much are we spending in multifamily versus commercial? Or what is the embodied carbon that my portfolio is going to produce over the next 12 months? These are questions that right now are very difficult to answer because of all of those reasons we mentioned at the start. That once you have a model that people love to use, that is easy and intuitive, you can create a massive output in terms of the data opportunity that lives in that gray zone between opportunity and construction. So I'll just finish with this short story, and then I'll get off the stage because we've only got 10 seconds left. We're working in Australia with a very large institutional developer. They're deploying about $3 billion worth of capital a year. And when they came to us, they were taking about 50 weeks to get a project from start to construction. We've reduced that down to 5, and we've halved their consulting spend based on these methods, where we have a modular kit of parts that they use to build a building. They're all stored in Giraffe. They drag them onto the sites they find. Feasible, yes. Feasible, no. If yes, push a button, detailed design done, and then off it goes. So that's the opportunity that's lying in all of your data, and if you'd love to work with us, I would love to work with you. We'll all be around, and we'll see you shortly. Thank you very much.